it is time for the Klein Tools MM2000 individual multimeter review. So I already included this as one of the, I guess, contestants for the $50 multimeter shootout, which would be some videos I uploaded about 2 weeks ago. And I promised that I would do individual reviews of each multimeter, so then if you decide that a certain multimeter interested you, you could go pull up the individual reviews to see even more details. Because obviously with 15 multimeters, I had to be pretty brief about most things to keep the videos from being too terribly long, and they were still pretty long, and they were 9 parts. I mean, granted, most of the parts are 15 to 20 minutes, so it wasn't terrible, but with 9 parts, I mean, it does add up. But that's about as quick as I could get them. I'm a pretty long-winded person, so... So anyway, I really like this meter, aesthetically speaking. It's just a really nice-looking meter. I like the colors, the texture, and quality. The plastic on the front is really high quality. I don't know if you can tell. It looks great. So... obviously, that doesn't mean everything. Function over form, right? But that being said, I definitely don't mind multimeters that look nice while being great meters. And honestly, I didn't really have any major problems with this multimeter that I can remember off the top of my head. Now, I have a terrible memory, and it's been a little while, but I think the biggest issues, well, one thing, it's not really an issue, but it's only 4,000 count display resolution, which is, it's okay. 6,000 is usually preferred for electronic stuff, because that way when you're doing any microcontroller or breadboard stuff, usually you're dealing with 5 volts or lower, in which case you would still get 3 digits to the right of the decimal point, as where with 4,000 count display resolution, you only have 2 digits to the right of the decimal point at 5 volts. But it's not a huge deal. It's definitely not a deal breaker. I mean, it is True RMS. It feels like one of the most tough multimeters out of the entire $50 bunch, because it's got a big, thick rubber holster around it that's removable, and it just feels really rugged. So it has 0.5% basic DC accuracy, plus or minus 4 counts. It cost me $64.39 shipped. That was on eBay. I checked today, and the cheapest ones are right around $70. So I would say you can expect to pay around $70 if you live in the United States and you get on eBay. And I'm talking brand new, sealed in the package. Now, if you go to Home Depot, they sell this exact model at Home Depot. It's $109. So obviously there's also tax since it's in a brick and mortar store. If you live in the States, depending on which state you live in, you don't have online sales tax. So getting it on eBay could get you this for as cheap as $70. And for $70, it's not terrible. It's not super high horsepower compared to some of the other ones in the bunch, but it's a good reputable name brand. And I know these are all rebadged Chinese meters. I think, if I remember correctly, there's a Chinese brand, CEM is the OEM for this. But that being said, though, I didn't really see anything that jumped out to me as being terrifying or horrible or anything. So I mean, this is an electrician's brand, and I don't imagine they would release multimeters that are dangerous to use for electricians, so it can't be that bad. So as far as packaging, I did an unboxing video, as I did with all of them, but to try to keep these videos more to the point, I decided not to show it. But it comes with a pretty decent manual. I guess I can show you, because I have it. Comes with a pretty decent manual. And it's a printed paper type, but it's actually a really good one. So this is about as good as it gets for a printed single sheet of paper that's folded up. It's got diagrams, it's all in perfectly good English. And actually, yeah, it's only in English. The entire thing is English. So considering it's a folded piece of paper one, this is actually excellent, and probably the best folded paper manual I've ever seen for a multimeter. It comes with the multimeter, comes with the probes, the manual, and then a K-type thermocouple. And unfortunately, this is the stupid proprietary type to where you can't buy a generic K-type thermocouple and plug it into here because, well, you need the adapter. So slight loss of points for that, but it's not a huge deal. So I guess I already told you the specs. It's got volts AC and DC shared on one range. I'm not a huge fan of that, but it works. So if you, I think it defaults, yeah, it defaults to AC because obviously this is for electricians, so they would be doing more AC work. And then if you push select, it switches to DC. It's got continuity, diode, capacitance, and ohms in one single range, which is okay. It's a little annoying that they had to throw capacitance in there too. That's just that many more times you have to hit the button to get to some of those ranges, but whatever, not a huge deal. You have a frequency and duty cycle range, and it looks like on this meter that's the only way to measure frequency or duty cycle. A lot of meters there'll be a dedicated button to where you can check it if you're doing any type of AC measurement. Good old low Z mode, temperature, and it does have Celsius. You can select with that button. Current ranges, just like with the voltage, it's AC DC shared, and it's might be the only meter with the low impedance mode. Is it? I think it is. Yeah, I think it's the only one of the bunch, which is, it's pretty interesting. It's got 4 jacks instead of the shared milliamp and voltage jack like some of them have, so I prefer it this way. And I don't think it has input jack detection. Yeah, it's not complaining, so that's fine. Okay, so let's talk about the physical build quality. So it's, I would say it's about your average full-size multimeter. It's not huge, but it's not small. I have smaller hands, so keep that in mind. But it feels super rugged, and it's got this pretty heavy-duty rubber surround on it. Now, it doesn't have the ridges on the inside like the Flukes do, but the lip touches, and then the surround goes out, so there's a little air pocket. So it does actually have a little bit of give, which I think probably adds to its strength and rigidity, but maybe there's not a lot, because there is a little lip right here. But it feels super tough. It feels like it could handle a pretty good amount of abuse. And it has, the holster has the kickstand built into it. And it's at a really good angle. I don't mind it too much. It's kind of a long kickstand, so it does eat up quite a bit of benchtop real estate, but it's really stable, so I can't complain about that. You can push the buttons, it won't fall over. And it's all rubber touching, so if you did the Dave Jones spin test, where you put it on its back and change the ranges, it won't spin even on a slick surface. Now this surface, nothing will spin because it's a rubbery ESD mat, but figured I'd at least cover that. So let's take a look at the probes. They have tiny, absolutely tiny little finger guards. And I think this is the only meter of the $50 bunch that actually came with insulated alligator leads. So you slide these over, and then there's some threads on there, and then you just screw them on until they're nice and tight. Some of them, like I think it's the Keysight / Agilent stuff, they just have like little female and male ends that just slide together. This one actually has threads, so you get a nice, clean, solid connection, and I like that a lot. So good on them for including that. I forgot to mention these when I mentioned what all the meter came with. So as far as the probes though, it's kind of a somewhat rubbery feeling probe handle. They're really small though, and the finger guards are small, but that seems to be pretty common for all the multimeters in this price range. They're not razor sharp, like it's not like a needle point, but they come to a pretty decent point. It's not horrible. I'd say it's probably about average as far as pointiness, but they'd get the job done. You have all your ratings on there, but it's the cable is decently flexible. I mean, it's no silicone wire, that's for sure. The wires are branded and rated and all that good stuff, so that's good. And then the other ends are just your regular 90-degree jacks, or plugs, I mean, and decent strain relief. It's really stiff, but I guess that's fine. And the probes have really good strain reliefs on them. The entire like 1.5 inches on the end bends. So yeah, and it's got Klein Tools on there, so you can tell that which meters go to what set of probes, because I ran into that problem with 15 meters. I had tons of probes and cables and thermocouples and manuals laying all over the place, so it was nice that it came with that. Okay, sorry about that. Let's talk about the range switch. I personally like it a lot. It takes quite a bit of force, but it's very, how would I word it? It's very notchy and positive. And it is probably the loudest one I've ever heard. It feels like a manly man's range switch. It's just clonk, clonk, clonk into the next range. But it feels of really good quality, and I don't think you'd have any problems worrying about this getting stuck between ranges. So I like the range switch a lot. I'd say it's probably above average if I were to had to put it on some kind of rating scale. So in frequency, wherever it is, frequency measurement range, it'll measure up to 1 megahertz, which is decent. It's about normal for these things. Capacitance, it'll measure up to 4,000 microfarad, which is a little on the higher end. I feel like most multimeters are between 1,000 microfarad to about 4,000, somewhere in that range. Some will do considerably more, especially the cheaper Chinese ones always seem to have a really high capacitance measurement range, which is interesting. And some of them, like the Radio Shack one and I think the X-Tech one, only go to like 100 microfarad, which is almost useless in a lot of scenarios. So that's a pretty decent capacitance measurement range. And so we'll test it and see how slow or fast it is. And it'll measure resistance to 40 megaohms. And it's a Cat 3000 volt, Cat 4 600 volt. And it'll do 1000 volt AC and DC, is what the manual said. All right, let's talk about the display. It is probably the best display out of the entire $50 multimeter shootout, in my personal opinion. It's kind of one of those things that's half objective but also half subjective. I personally think it looks great. Really big tall letters, but they're not the super thick digits. I don't like the thicker digits. It's not as natural. And so because you know, when you read written English, your brain memorizes the shape and look of a word. So it's not like you're actually sounding the words out. You read sentences by recognizing the shapes of the words and what they kind of look like. And so whenever you have those really thick digits, I find it hard to just glance at it really quickly and get a quick reading. I have to stare at it for a second to figure it out. It's not a huge difference, and it's probably something you'd measure in the millisecond range, but I just feel like it's just not as easy to read, and it's not as good to my eyes. I prefer thinner digits, not the super thin, but just normal. So this has normal. Screen is huge, has a nice big bar graph. The contrast on this is excellent. I hope it's showing up through the camera, because in person the contrast on this is among the best. I really, really like it a lot. And it does have a backlight. You hold this button right here, and it's a pretty good backlight. So let me turn that off. I'm not going to bother turning the other lights off, but as you can see, it's pretty bright. It's pretty much like it's pretty much a white color, and it's super, super even. The diffuser they're using is really, really good. I don't see any hot spots at all, and we'll keep talking because I'm really curious how long the backlight lasts, because I found that on a lot of these they only last for 10 to 20 seconds and then they turn themselves off, and then to turn them back on you have to hold a button for a few seconds, and to me that's annoying and almost useless. But this one so far it looks like it's been going for what, 20-30 seconds now. That's pretty good. As long as it goes more than 10 seconds, I don't complain too much about it. And this one, oh, that'd be so awesome if this is one that didn't turn off until you told it to turn off. We'll find out. We'll leave it on. Well, actually, we're not going to leave it on because I don't want to sit here just burning away footage and making this video any longer than it has to be. But it's been a good 30 seconds, I would say, at least, and it's still on, so that's excellent. But we're going to turn it off because it's time to see what the fuse and battery access situation is. So unfortunately, if I remember correctly, we have to take the holster off to get to it. Now, here is a disclaimer. Obviously, I've already taken this apart and gone through the paces in the shootout video, but out of the box, across here, the orange comes across. The surround has a back panel that comes all the way across. With that on there, it was so freaking hard to get this off of there. I mean, it was hurting my fingers. I was shaking. I was like putting so much force on it, because if you go to pull this off, you need something on the backside to put your fingers against, and you can't put your fingers on the orange, obviously, because then you can't pull it off. So I had to put my fingers down here, and it's a terrible design. It's even after I modified it like this. So if you get one of these, I recommend getting, you know, a knife or some side cutters or something, and cutting the orange rubber surround part all the way to the end here, because then you can put your thumbs here, and then you can pull the surround off more easily. Now, it still takes a pretty good amount of force, so it's not like you have to worry about it falling out even after you make the modification, but in stock form, it's extremely hard to get this off. But once you make the modification, as you saw, it's not that bad. So here's the unit without its surround, and it's actually still a decent looking unit. A lot of multimeters look butt ugly without their surround on them, but it's kind of got that really dark, like jungle green, like a military green, maybe even a little darker than that, kind of getting close to like a grayish color. But I really like it. It looks, the color and the texture, it just looks a really high quality plastic. Now, I don't know anything about plastics. I'm not a plastics engineer or plastics connoisseur or anything, so I really don't know. Maybe this is cheap plastic, and to my eyes it just looks great, but I like the look of it a lot. And the contrast of the orange, I think it looks great. But again, that's subjective. That's my personal preference. So yeah, you definitely couldn't take the battery door off without taking the surround off, because unfortunately it comes all the way around to the side. If this came straight over to the end, we would have been able to pull it off. But so that's not the greatest. It could be a better design for sure. So there's one single screw, it's a machine screw, and then there's a little tab that holds it on. And it does go into a metal nut because, well, obviously it's a machine screw. So it's funny, I hate the fact that you have to take the holster off to get to it, but I love that you have fuse and battery access with one single door. So it's kind of like a good thing canceling out a bad thing, because it's only one of 2 meters, I think. Was it the circuit test, I think, was the only other one that I reviewed in the $50 range that had fuse and battery access from one single door. In fact, not just one door, but without taking the entire unit apart. And they're properly rated 1000 volt name brand HRC fuses. So that is excellent. I'm really pleased with the battery access, barring the stupid surround removal to get to it. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased, and I'm also happy that it uses AAA batteries. I much prefer those to 9 volts. So I think it might be time to go ahead and just tear it the rest of the way down, and we can look inside and see what makes this thing tick. Okay, so I took 5 self-tapping screws out, but they were pretty good size ones. And obviously, because you have battery and fuse access, you shouldn't ever have to take it apart. But I'm doing it for the sake of this review. But there's no shielding on it, so that loses a couple points for that. But I do like the battery compartment design. It's just some springs that contact some pads on the main PCB. Okay, so there's the main processor for anyone who wants to know. And there's a little crystal up above it. A lot of through-hole resistors on this, but there's also a ton of analog SMD stuff. And then there's a tiny little factory bodge wire right there. Really tiny one. You probably actually could or not notice that if you weren't paying close attention. And you got the buzzer for the continuity test. Got all your input protection over here. Looks like 3 PTCs, and I'm going to pay closer attention during the shootout. I called some of the PTCs, or some MOVs PTCs, because they were of similar shape, and I'm used to seeing the disc style MOVs. So I'll start paying more attention to the PCB, to the silk screen. I mean, there's another little. I don't know if that's an intentional bodge wire. Maybe it's something they bridge for different models or something. I'm not completely sure, but it's there nonetheless. We already saw the fuses, which are excellent, and then it's got a nice looking 10 amp current shunt. Good size input power resistor there. And then there's the input jack design. It doesn't have detection, so I'm not really sure why it's this style and why that one's bridged all the way across. So these two are the current ones. And it's got high voltage cutouts right there and down over here. And honestly, I don't really see anything about this that I don't like. It's a really neat design. Now, I know these are based, I mean, I think the OEM for this is CEM. It's a Chinese manufacturer, and I don't really know much about them. That was actually someone else, I think it was on EEV blog forums, told me that. So, just for anyone who wants to know, but that being said, I don't know anything about them, but just from looking at this, it looks to be of decent quality. Now, I should do a video on this, but I'm going to go ahead and mention it. Just because a multimeter has, let's say you have a multimeter, it's got 1000 volt HRC fuses, which are, you know, the ceramic high rupture capacity ones. It's got a bunch of PTCs. It's got a MOV or two. It's got a spark gap. Tons of high voltage cutouts. Even if it has every one of those things, it doesn't mean that it's a safe multimeter. There's tons of other stuff you have to take into consideration. For example, are the high current traces big enough? Are the components spaced far enough apart? I mean, even if you have a high voltage cutout, if you have another component, let's say that's tied to ground reference and it's really close to your either the voltage or the current, that could completely negate the fact that you have high voltage isolation slots when somewhere else on the board there might be, you know, a quarter of that intolerance where it can arc across. So there's a ton of stuff to take into consideration. If you see me mentioning all the stuff on here, that doesn't mean you should automatically assume that this is going to be a super safe meter like a Fluke. I'm just pointing it out because it's good to see that stuff, but as far as safety, you just never know. And that's kind of why Fluke gets a ton of business. They've already earned their reputation for being safe. So, you know, you can buy one and basically depend on it with your life, and you know that you'll be fine. As for this, I mean, it's an American brand, and they're reputable, and electricians use these. And from what I can tell, it's built really, really well. It feels super sturdy. I don't see anything inside here that terrifies me, and it's got a lot of half-decent input protection. So I don't think it's terrible, but you shouldn't automatically assume that this is some like Uber multimeter for using for high voltage stuff, because there's just too many other variables at play that you have to take into consideration. So unless a unit like this is actually tested by, let's say, the underwriter's laboratory, you just don't know for sure. So, and that's the thing. If there's a UL marking on a multimeter, you can go look it up on their website. So in those cases, you will know, but I don't believe this is UL listed. Oh, I lied. It is. And the good thing is it's an American manufacturer, so they pretty much have to if they don't want to get shut down by the feds. So yeah, if you want to go look that up. Oh, and you know, this is made in Korea. Maybe CEM is, no, maybe. Oh, you know what? Maybe I thought CEM is Chinese. So I know that I remember reading, I think it's the higher Klein models are made in Korea, which are the better quality ones, and then their lower end ones are Chinese made. So I think this is actually the better Korean one. So this might actually be really, really good as far as safety. And it's UL listed. So if the UL put their stamp on it, you know that this is probably pretty safe. But don't take my word for it. Go look it up. Klein MM2000. If I remember to, maybe I'll find a link and I'll post it in the video description. But knowing my memory, I probably won't do that. But do I pull this out? Yeah, this is a detailed review. I'll go ahead and pull the PCB out so we can look at the other side. Why not? Okay, so there is virtually nothing on the front side of this board. It's got their custom molded input jacks, and you get a better look at the isolation slots, but there really isn't much to it. It's just another layer of the PCB with a bunch of traces that you can see, and obviously the spots for the rubber buttons, and then the display. Is there anything under there? Oh. So looks like it's soldered, the backlight system is soldered to the board, so I can't pull it off of there. But it is directly behind this, so I'm guessing that's probably also, would it be? Yeah, I see a bunch of pins over here going through vias, so I think this is probably also driving the display. It's kind of sad that I couldn't peek under here, but I would imagine that this is probably driving the display, so. Yeah, there's the backside for anyone who wants to see it. Try to hold it nice and still so you get a good, clean, high quality shot. So, yeah, overall, I am pretty impressed with this, and I'm glad that this is the Korean-made one. Now, if you're from China or you're Chinese, don't take offense to this. It's just China's where you go to do mass manufacturing of products for really cheap, and so and they do a lot of shady practices over there where they print, you know, ratings, and they'll print CE and CAT ratings and UL stamps on products that have never been certified, just because people will believe it, and being Chinese, they know that they're not going to get in trouble for it. And so, yeah, you have to be suspect to some of their stuff. It's not to say good stuff doesn't come out of there. I mean, look at all Apple's products are made and assembled over there. So it's not like bad stuff. It's not like everything out of China is bad, but you just have to be weary of anything that does come from China that doesn't come from a super big manufacturer like, you know, Fluke or something. Which Fluke does have a meter that comes from China now, and it's actually decent quality. And this one, though, it's made in Korea, and Korea is known for making some really good electronics. They have LG and Samsung and a bunch of other big name players, so that's always fun. And here's the back side of the case, and really beefy range switch assembly, and it's just got one of those snap rings keeping the range switch from falling out. So I really liked this meter overall, if you couldn't tell. Obviously, this is probably rebranded because, well, it's got a little inlay that you could probably replace with any other manufacturer's logo on there. But let's get it back together, and then we'll take some measurements and see how it does. Okay, it's time to do some measurements. I'm going to start off with DC voltage, so let's see how it does. I have a 5-volt reference. There's no point in doing a bunch of measurements. Any of these half-decent name-brand multimeters will all, you know, they'll all measure within their specs. You can expect that they'll do what they're supposed to do. Now, super cheap Chinese ones like the TP40 Tech Power and the Hold Peak obviously broke and stopped functioning correctly while I had them, and I haven't even done any torture tests on them yet, so yeah. It got me. So it's like I said earlier, this defaults to AC, and so yeah, I need to hit this little button. Now it's on DC. Should be 5 volts even, so it's, I mean, it's within its rated spec, but yeah, not terrible. And actually, what's the temperature? See, my reference isn't ovenized, so the temperature does affect the reading. So that could also be part of it, I'm not sure. Okay, let's do a continuity test. Oh, did I get something under the screen there? That's gonna bug me. Okay, continuity tests with the stock probes. So when it gets a clean connection, it's pretty quick, but this is another one of those where it comes with some kind of crappy probes. So I think that this would benefit from aftermarket probes, kind of like the Probe Masters, for example, because those are only $12. So when it gets a clean connection, it's fast. Now the continuity test is really loud, so you should take that into account if you decide to get this. If you're doing this for like if you're getting this for work, you do a lot of continuity testing, and there's a whole bunch of technicians you sit near, this might be a little too loud. It is very, very loud. Now, loud is probably better than too quiet where you can't even hear it, but yeah, that's very loud. So continuity test is pretty good. I would say it's a little average, maybe a little above average, but the stock probes are holding it back a little bit. Let's do resistance. First, let's see how quickly it auto ranges. So obviously it's going to start off in the mega ohm range, and then I'm going to short it, and then we'll see how long it takes to go all the way down. Very, very, very slow. So at least for resistance measurements, the auto ranging is pretty pathetic. I mean, look at that. I don't think I've seen one that's slower than that. Well, let's see what its display update rate is like, at least in resistance. It's a little slow. It's like 1 to 2 a second. But that's just for resistance. A lot of these will have different update rates for the different ranges. So while we're at it, let's actually do some resistance measurement. Start off with 1K. It's so weird. It's another one of those that it takes a second for it to settle up to the correct reading. So that's good. 10K. 100K. Not bad. Okay, we're gonna do diode test. Obviously, all multimeters that come with a diode check range will be able to will work with a silicone diode, but they're also handy for checking LEDs. I mean, not resistors, for checking LEDs. So what I have here is a super bright white LED. See if it'll light it up. Do I have the polarity right? Yep. Yep, not lighting it up. Let's see if it'll light up a red LED. It'll barely light it up, doesn't show voltage. And obviously, a Schottky diode's among the lowest as far as forward voltage, so it works for that and shows you the voltage. But yeah, don't get this if you're going to be testing a bunch of LEDs. But obviously that's kind of a bonus, like a handy perk. But I don't think that would be reason not to buy this. But it's worth showing you if you're interested in this meter. That might be a make or break thing for you. Probably not, but okay. So well, actually, first thing we should do is just see, will it go down into the picofarad range with, whoops, man, that beeper's really loud. I guess you could, if it's too loud for you, you could open it up and put a piece of tape over the hole on the speaker, and then it'll muffle it, so might be a good mod for this, but I don't know if I want to take this back apart again. Yeah. You can't really buy a meter like this and expect it to go down to the picofarad range, but it's worth checking. Should be able to do 100 nano though. Yep. So let's go ahead and test the big one, see how long it takes. This is 1000 microfarad, and this multimeter supposedly will do 4000. So, and oh, I love that. It has a progress little bar thing. It's not a progress bar, but it's a busy sign, like a little indicator showing you that it's in the process of taking a measurement, and I love that. Because some meters, the screen freezes, and that's really annoying. This one, there's no guessing. With the little dots on the screen, you know, hey, it's actually taking the measurement. And it wasn't too slow. I've seen much slower, so that's pretty average for a big size capacitor like this. So yeah, and the reading looked to be pretty accurate. I'm not going to bother getting my LCR out to test against or anything. Okay, let's do precision current measurement. And despite this being an electrician's multimeter, this is one of the higher models, so it actually will do microamps. Again, it defaults to AC, so precision 1 milliamp, and looks like it is pretty much dead on, so that is excellent. Actually, that's one thing I didn't check. How is... Oh. I was gonna say, how is the update rate of the bar graph? Okay, bar graph seems to be much quicker than the display, so that's good. At least with one where the update rate's kind of slow, like 2 a second, you have the bar graph to give you a better visual representation of the swing of whatever you're measuring. So that's pretty nice. All right, it's got frequency measurement capability, so let's go ahead and try it out. It'll do 1 megahertz, so what I usually do is just go straight to what it says it's capable of measuring and see if it can do it. Okay, so apparently I'm stupid, and the little mini grabber thing came off, so it didn't have a good connection. But anyway, there's 500 kilohertz. Let me kick it back up to a megahertz and see what she does. So that's really bizarre. I could have sworn, actually I have the manual here. I could have sworn it said 1... Oh no, I lied. I had written it down wrong. Frequency measurement on the Klein is only up to 500 kilohertz. So that would explain why it's not working, because I have my flute connected in parallel with it, and it's reading 1 megahertz on the dot, which is interesting because it's actually not rated to go any higher than the kilohertz range. So, well, but you did see that 500 kilohertz worked, and that also happens to be the max it's rated at. But let's try 600 just to see what it does. Yeah, it'll do 600. Let's try 700. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, set it to 800 and it's not changing, so I'm guessing 700 is about as high as it'll go. But that being said, though, you know, they rate these for what they rate them at for a reason. It doesn't mean just because I showed you it'll do 700 megahertz that, or 700 kilohertz, I mean, that you should rely on this to measure above what it's rated for, because they probably chose the safest range where it would accurately and reliably give you a good reading. So just to throw that out there, let's set it to 60 hertz and then see how accurate the duty cycle is. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's supposed to be 50. I'm sure there's some other noise and junk in there from the really long wire I have going across my bench to the frequency generator and the probes and all that good stuff. But yeah. Okay, so frequency test worked fine. I had no problems with that. So one thing I want to check and see, the update rate for voltage seems to be a little quicker. Yeah, this seems to be more like 3 a second, so that's not too bad. That's pretty good. But like I said, it'll be different in the different ranges. So I guess what I want to test, how could we... So it's got a manual range button, which is nice to have. It's got rel, so let's try that. Shows you the delta symbol over here. So yeah, that works nicely. It does have auto power off up here in the corner. I would assume there's a way to defeat it, and if there is, I like that a lot. Okay, so it says to hold the select button while you power it on. No? There. So I powered it on while holding the select button, And as you can see, the auto power off where it says APO is not on the screen anymore. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to try is the min-max. Well, the hold, yeah, the hold's a crappy kind that just freezes the reading on the screen, which, yeah, I don't know why they bother putting that on there. But the min-max is what interests me, because on most multimeters, it is almost worthless. So on most multimeters, when you push min-max, it'll start recording minimum and maximum values. But you can only view the current min and or the current max live and nothing else. There's no way to read live readings of what your probes are measuring while the multimeter's recording mins and maxes. So this is the highest recorded max. This is the highest recorded min. Yeah, see, this is the crappy type. So if we have it set to max, right now it's reading the highest recorded max. So I messed with the probes a little bit and got it to read 90 millivolts. This is the current, I mean, if I touch this to a battery or something, this would read a new max and it would change live. But there's no way for me to see what the probes are actually measuring while recording mins and maxes, because all you can view is the current minimum or the current maximum. That's it. You have to hold the button to get out of min-max mode, and once you're out of min-max mode, it's no longer recording mins and maxes. So if I remember the max was 90 millivolts, watch. Now it's not 90 anymore because it reset, it cleared the value. So it's really annoying that they add min-max features to these multimeters that work like that, because it becomes really annoying. If you want to be able to record minimums and maximums and see a live reading of what your probes are measuring, then you need a second multimeter in this case, because the min-max function is junk. What I prefer is you can see a minimum, a maximum, and then a mode where you see min and max both blinking on the screen, and what's on the screen is actually a live reading of what your probes are measuring, but in the background it's measuring new highs and lows to those min and max, you know, memory registers or variables or whatever they store them in. And then obviously if you hold it, then it'll break completely out of it and clear all the values, but not on this one. This is unfortunately a crappy type, but I can't knock the meter for that, because almost every meter out there works in this manner, and it's really annoying. There's at least one multimeter in this that I did a rant video about, complaining about this specific topic. I don't remember which one it was, but it did it in the manner that I like, where it would let you see the live view of whatever your multimeter's reading while it's recording mins and maxes in the background. But I thought it was this one, but apparently it's not. So thought I would mention it. It's kind of good to know. And I think I've kind of covered all the functionality on here. So I think the only thing left now is to check out its current consumption to see how long the sucker would go on a set of batteries. Okay, so what I have here is the multimeter hooked up using my bench power supply instead of the AA batteries or AAA batteries that it comes with, and I have it set to voltage DC, and then I have it connected to my 10 volt reference. So that's pretty close-ish, as we mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to do, well, actually, I guess I'll tell you. According to my bench power supply, it's drawing 3 milliamps. Now that's, the ammeters on the bench power supplies aren't always the most accurate, so I will hook it up, use through another multimeter's current range, and then we can measure for sure to see what the current consumption of the device is. Let me turn the backlight on. With the backlight on, it goes up to 22 milliamps. But we'll test that later with another multimeter. So for now, the reason I've hooked up to my bench power supply is because I want to see how it behaves with low battery. So I'm going to move this over to the 100 milliamp range, and I'm just going to start going down 100 milliamps at a time. So, or 100 millivolts, I mean. 2.9 volts, 2.8, 2.6, 2.5, 2.4. Holy crap. Okay, so at 2.2, was it? Now it's showing a little even further off from what the reference should be. It should be 10.000. There we go. Well, maybe not. Now, I'm only at 2.4 volts. So I'm going to go down to 2.3. For some reason, so we're at 2.3 and it's still not showing low voltage, but last time when I hit 2.2, it just shut off. It didn't even give any warning. So here we go down to 2.2. So at 2.2 volts, the meter becomes unusable and it just says bat on the screen. So let me go back up to 2.3. Okay, so apparently it's usable down to 2.3 volts. I should probably write that down. Okay, so 2.3 volts, not great, but those are AAAs, and I have not looked at a discharge graph of one for a while, so maybe that's still a pretty good chunk of the energy in those suckers. That being said, though, the current consumption on this thing is only showing 3 milliamps, so for all we know, even then, this thing could go forever. But I think it's time to hook it up through another multimeter, and then we'll find out what its current consumption is, and then we'll also see what the current consumption is in standby mode after auto power off has shut it off. Okay, so I have it hooked up through my Voltcraft, and it looks like the power supply's amp meter is actually somewhat decent. It's saying 3 milliamps, and this is saying 2.77 or 2.78. And that's not too bad. But I mean, most multimeters are pretty low like that for a standard display, a standard LCD display. Ones with the OLED will be drawing something similar to what one of these would with a backlight on. So let's turn the backlight on and see what that changes to. So there's an initial spike, but it looks like about 22 milliamps. Okay, well, I'm gonna go pull up some battery discharge curves for just standard different brands of AAA batteries, and then I'll come back. Well, actually, what we'll do, I'll let this auto power off in the meantime, and then we'll see what the current draw is while it's auto powered off. Sorry, as I was saying before I got a phone call, I'm gonna leave these hooked up, and then obviously we already know the draw is like anywhere from, well, now it's shown 2.7. Earlier saying, well, no, yeah, 2.7 to 2.78 milliamps is what it draws just normally without the backlight on. And I'm gonna go look up some discharge curves for just some regular old AAA batteries and kind of get a good idea of what kind of capacity we'll get at them at that current draw rate. And then I should be able to come back and give you an estimate on how long this multimeter will probably go on a fresh set of batteries. And in the meantime, I'm going to leave these here and then wait for this one to auto power off, and then we'll get to see what the current consumption is while it's in standby mode after it's been auto powered off. So yeah, let's let that happen. Okay, so I checked the manual, and unfortunately the auto power off on this multimeter is 30 minutes, which is pretty long. So I'm gonna go ahead and stop the video to keep this just from growing to a ridiculous size, just so it makes it quicker to transfer the files and all that junk. But I went ahead and already looked up a discharge curve for the AAA batteries, and it looks like at this current consumption rate of about 2.5 to 2.7 milliamps roughly, and with a cutoff voltage of 2.3 volts, it'll go over 100 hours, 100 to 110 hours, which is very good. And that's not it's not like it's excellent or anything. There are actually a ton of multimeters that will go easily that long, so it's good though. I mean, it beats the crap out of this, but this still, even if this does 20 or 30 hours, for me that's long enough. It's not like 9-volt batteries cost much, so it goes out, I pop a new one in, it's not a big deal. But yeah, that's 110 hours for those who wanted to know, and for those who want to know what the standby power ugh, I need some caffeine. If anyone wants to know what the standby current consumption is after auto power off puts it into standby mode, stick around because that'll come up in a second. I'm gonna leave this for 30 minutes and then I'll be back. Alright, it finally powered off after 30 long minutes. It's gonna make doing all these multimeter reviews take so long. Anyway, looks like I should have switched it to microamp range, but it looks like it's under 10 microamps, so that's pretty damn good. That should go a long time in the sleep state or standby state, whatever you want to call it. So not too bad. So let me pop the battery cover and the holster back on here, and then I'll give you a good summary. Okay, so I got everything put away, and man, I'll tell you, those ProbeMaster probes are sharp. I don't know if you can see that or not. I went to wrap the probes around the multimeter to go put it away where I normally store it, and it bit me. So I might actually start putting some covers or tip covers on the end of that, because man, that was freaking sharp. Anyway, I digress, like usual. I guess I'll give you a summary. Overall, I really like this meter. The price is a little on the higher end. You got to go to eBay to get it cheap, and it's $70, which, that's $20 higher than the $50 range that we're trying to shoot for. But that being said, the build quality is excellent. This is a Korean-made model instead of the Chinese-made model. It has the fully branded and rated HRC fuses, the big ones. The construction's great. I didn't see any problems whatsoever with the input protection. Display resolution would be better if it were 6000, but 4000's fine. There's plenty in the $50 range that are that. It's True RMS. It's got low impedance mode. It's got probably the best display out of all the $50 multimeters, and it's got a really good backlight that stays on for a really long time. We didn't actually test to see how long that was, but it never shut off in the, at least 30 seconds that I gave it. Min-max mode isn't the good type that I like, but I guess if you need it, it's still there. It's got manual ranging, it's got relative, so it's got all the neat goodies that you would want in a multimeter that you'd use for basic electronic stuff. It'll do millivolts, it'll do microamps. It even comes with a temperature probe. I guess I don't know if there's any benefit to showing you temperature, but why not? So the thermometer in the room, it says it's 76.2. Huh. Well, I'm not sure how accurate that really is, because it's should be reading around 76, and this is going below that, and it's slowly creeping down, so I don't know what the deal is with that. But I mean, it's obviously working, because if I touch it, it jumps up pretty quickly to what my exterior body temperature is. So yeah, at least it comes with one. I just hate that it's this, it fits in there snug. Oh, good lord. It's proprietary type. I don't like that, but at least it comes with it for free, so I guess you can give them a little bit of credit for that. And at least it's got temperature measurement range. Some of the meters, like for example the UNI-T ones, they don't actually do temperature, so, or at least the UT61 series, the A through D, or A through E. Well, actually, I guess I don't know about the A through C models, but the D and the E don't do temperature, so it's cool that it includes it, and it's cool that it includes the thermocouple, but if you ever need to replace it, you got to buy one from Klein because it's a proprietary type. So it's a little bit of good, a little bit of bad. Looks like the backlight. Did I turn that off without thinking about it? I don't know. I think it did shut itself off, but it lasts pretty long. Was that maybe a minute or something? But it beats the hell out of the short ones, like the circuit test one and the tech power one lasted, 10 seconds, and that was it. So those suck, but at least this one's lasts decently long. But with a super tough build quality, a really good removable surround, excellent screen, excellent contrast, excellent backlight, display update rate, and auto ranging speed's a little slow, at least for resistance range. It seemed okay for voltage range. Accuracy seems fine. I mean, the specs are pretty decent. 0.5% +4. That's pretty normal. It's True RMS. Range switch I love. And the kickstand's very usable and sturdy, and you can push buttons without it falling over. It's got a bar graph. Some of them don't have that. You can disable the auto power off if you want to with a startup sequence, which is just holding the select button when you power it on. You can access the fuses and the batteries from the battery door. Granted, you have to take the surround off to get to it, and I had to modify the surround to make it easier to get to, but all in all, though, honestly, it's a great meter. It just depends on price and what kind of functionality you're wanting. I mean, this has a little bit of everything. It's got backlight, temperature, capacitance, frequency, diode test. I mean, it's got everything you'd want. It'll do microamps, millivolts, and build quality and safety wise, it looks excellent. Really, there's not a lot of bad to say about it, just except price. So continuity test was okay. I think it's just the only major things that I didn't like. The auto ranging for resistance was just really slow. Display resolution could be a little better. 4000 is not as good as 6000, but it'll still get the job done. The probes are fine. I mean, it's a good meter. I would recommend it if I would actually recommend it over a lot of the other ones, to be honest. Just because, I mean, for example, the BK Precision. It's a bigger name brand for electronics work, but this feels 1,000 times better as far as build quality, ruggedness, toughness, and it can't do a lot of stuff. It can't do frequency measurement. It can't do capacitance measurement. This will do both those things. Actually, this will do quite a bit more than that. And the BK doesn't even have a backlight. So I actually recommend this well ahead of a lot of the other ones in the $50 shootout range. Now, I know I didn't just list them from 1 through 15, which I think you should buy, because that depends on your personal metrics, what's important to you, what you need in a multimeter. So I can't do that, but if for me personally, this would be pretty high on the list. I'd say in the top 4, top 3, something like that, because it looks good, it feels good, it does pretty much everything you need. There isn't really any specific thing it's missing, to be honest. Some of them don't have backlight, some don't have min-max, some don't have relative, some don't have a manual ranging button, some are missing one of these measurement capabilities. Some have a crappy display, some have a crappy kickstand, some don't have a surround, some have a built-in surround, some you can't access the fuse through the battery door, but this does a little bit of all that. There's not really any one single horrible thing about this. So yeah, if you can find it for cheap, especially if you can find it for $50, it's a no-brainer. I'd say you should, and you don't like the Uni-Ts, then I would say this is probably your best choice, maybe. I would have to look back through the group. The amp probe is actually pretty decent too, and it is cheaper. Now, if you go to Home Depot or somewhere, this is going to be, $109 plus tax. So if you can't find it for cheap, it's not worth the retail price that you would pay at a brick and mortar store. But if you can find it online for $70 or less and you're willing to pay that, then it's not terrible. But the problem with paying $70 for this is that is so close to the $100 range, and you spend $30 more, and there are some multimeters that are quite a bit, theoretically quite a bit better than this. So that's the only thing you have to consider when you get a multimeter that's kind of at the higher price range, because then you get close to the next price group, which would be the $100 meters. So just something to consider. But overall, excellent meter, and I would have no problems recommending it to anyone who thinks it's a good choice for them. So hopefully this is helpful to someone. I am going to continue to do the reviews, but I wish I wouldn't have given a time frame, because as long as each one of these is taking, there's no way I'm going to get these done this weekend. But I'm going to try to do at least one a day, hopefully a couple more this weekend. But yeah, it might be another week or two before I finish all of these individual reviews. Luckily, the hold peak's completely broken, so I probably won't even do that. Or I'll do one, it'll be a funny one, it'll be satire. Maybe same with the Tech Power TP40, because that one's having some problems too. Or I'll review it. That one mostly works, it's just continuity doesn't work, so I might actually review that one. But anyway, I'm just rambling on. Yeah, I will see you in the next video. Bye.